through my own journey of navigating tech and building a presence online, kind of like the hard way, the painful way, the expensive way of finding myself spread thin across all of these different platforms that didn't talk to each other, and just kind of coming to this like, I'm done, kind of like realization like that it shouldn't be this hard and it shouldn't be this expensive. And how can we help shortcut that for other people and make it less hard and less expensive?
Absolutely. Well, I know one of the areas that's dear to your heart is the new masterclasses that you're doing. So I think you should tell everybody about it.
Yeah, well, thanks to you, helping work behind the scenes to get it all off the ground. Welcome to the Firestarter Podcast. I'm Willa Kammerer. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're flipping the script a little bit. I'm joined today in studio by Babe Mooney, who is on our team at Firestarter, and I flew out to Scottsdale, Arizona to record some episodes for the podcast, and Babe lives here in Arizona, not right here in Scottsdale, a few hours away, but to me, coming from the East Coast, that's close enough. So I said, Babe, I want you to join me in studio so that we can, kind of have you come on and have a conversation, about the work that we do at Firestarter and, just do something a little bit different today. So Babe, thanks so much for making the trip and being here. And it's so fun to actually, in this world, with this virtual world, so often we don't actually get to, meet in person, spend time together, with the people that we work with. So it's fun, after kind of our virtual collaboration for a long time to actually finally be able to share the space with you and be here together in person. So welcome.
Wow, I'm excited. I mean, to me, it's like a good chance to get out of the office and do something fun. Yeah, I love it. So thank you for having me.
Well, I've seen you there on Slack, on your laptop, normal day at the office here at Firestarter.
Just a different office.
Exactly. So, Babe, I think part of why, I initially wanted you on the team is you bring such a, just deep background, lots of years in business. You've run businesses, you've been kind of like early days, in the kind of like online marketing space, funnels, all of it. From that perspective, coming to Firestarter, I would just kind of love your perspective on what makes us different, as a company, kind of like where we sit from your perspective, having been in different parts of the space, kind of in this kind of like online business and marketing space. What's different about how we operate?
Absolutely. One of the things that I saw right away is by you pulling together all of the different team members who also have the same excellent marketing experience, business experience. It's like a wealth of knowledge as a team that we're taking to the client. So it's very different than just having a strong leader like yourself and, a bunch of employees. So you've pulled together a team that is very qualified and brings so much to the table. So I think that's just brilliant of you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think my instinctive approach always to, kind of like team building, business building has been, I have this idea, there's kind of like a pie of things that need to be done, right? But that we're best, doing that when everyone is kind of able to operate in their own individual zone of genius rather than, kind of like trying to be mediocre at, kind of like all the things. And so kind of building a team around that same approach so that, we're able to kind of like each bring that, unique perspective and area of strength and then kind of like come together so that the sum is greater than the sum of all the individual parts. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I know one of the things that clients even, and just, my friends in general, when I tell them who I'm working with, they'll say, well, what makes her business, the brand business, different? So there you go. There's a question for you.
there's a question. I mean, I think when we hear brand, I think there's different aspects of our business. There's kind of like on the front end brand and on the back end tech. So, we'll start with the brand side. And I think that when we hear the word brand, often people will think of, the colors, the logos, the website, that part of things. But to me, brand is much deeper than that. It's identity. And I think that in our work with people helping them build brands, we're it's not that the kind of like visual presence and the messaging, it's not that it's an afterthought, but I think we start, kind of like a layer deeper at that foundational identity level, because that is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And I think that is a differentiator.
Right. I think one of the things that to me makes a big difference is that we're not taking the client and showing them how to do what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
I like how your methodology about the inside out. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. Well, I think, there's a lot of kind of like pressure and noise online and in the world in general to, kind of like follow this strategy and that strategy. And I think what we see a lot, and a lot of clients come to us having built their presences and their businesses in this way, almost parroting back all of the things that they've heard and all of the things that they've tried that have been based on what worked for someone else, but that isn't necessarily an aligned fit for what will work for them. And so I call that building from the outside in. And the way that we really, try to work is building instead from the inside out. And I think that everything often, experience, our own lived experience is the best teacher. So none of this is from a pedestal. It's all been reverse engineered from my own journey of experiencing deeply what it feels like to build and live a life from that place of outside in, you know, trying to, I found myself in a in a marriage that wasn't aligned, that I had, kind of like gotten into from a place of, well, I should. This is kind of like the next step. This is where I'm supposed to be in life, versus what was actually, true and aligned for me. And so, that process of kind of like unentangling that and coming back to kind of like personal alignment. But then also I've experienced it, in building my business and have realized kind of on the other side, an alignment is a forever journey, right? There's no kind of like, it's not a destination, it's a journey. But we step into our greatest power when we are connected with who we are and how we're uniquely wired to build. And the more that there can be kind of this, like a lack of a division between what's on the inside and what's on the outside, that is what's magnetic. That is what attracts. That is how you pull in, the aligned audience, the aligned clients, and bring in the people who you're meant to work with and impact. But I think that it can come down to a lack of trust. I think we see in a lot of clients coming to our doors, they've tried a lot of things, and it hasn't worked. And I think part of it is because they've tried things that have worked for other people, but that weren't, designed for them. So I think we kind of try to help clients connect with who they really are, what they're uniquely meant to kind of bring into the world, and then build from that foundation from the inside out versus from the outside in.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the tech.
Yes. So, when one is building a, business and a brand online, for better or worse, none of us, so many people, don't set out. You set out because you want to create an impact, not because you want to be a manager of, kind of like learn how to make funnels and, set up checkout pages and sales pages and all of this, but often to kind of like make the impact, connect with clients, run a business. Tech is kind of like the bridge that you need to cross and to enable you to do that. And so, we acknowledged that, saw that was, a real barrier for a lot of people, and decided how can we help kind of like fix that and kind of reverse engineer a solution to make the tech a little bit easier to navigate. So that's, kind of like why we came to start our platform, Firestarter Funnels, which is, an all-in-one platform for running your business online. Again, through my own journey of navigating tech and building a presence online, kind of like the hard way, the painful way, the expensive way of finding myself spread thin across all of these different platforms that didn't talk to each other, and just kind of coming to this like I'm done, kind of like realization, like that it shouldn't be this hard and it shouldn't be this expensive. And how can we, help shortcut that for other people and make it less hard and less expensive?
Absolutely. Well, I know one of the areas that's dear to your heart is the new master classes that you're doing. So um, I think you should tell everybody about.
Yeah, well, thanks to you, helping work behind the scenes to get it all off the ground. But I'm excited. Yeah, we launched this. We're kind of like a year into, growing Firestarter funnels, our platform to go high level, white label. So, high level is kind of the engine that runs it, and with our all of our support and kind of brand building around it. So the masterclass that we recently launched live Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, it's called the Personal Brand Operating System Masterclass. And it's really kind of like a year of lessons of that we've seen of what it takes to kind of like be successful and build in this space, and kind of like breaking down the journey that we've seen so many people kind of coming to us, being scattered across, all these tech platforms, and just the impact of being able to simplify down and be just on one single platform to run their business, whether they're just starting out or they're uh, are already in motion. But that the tech, on either side, the tech is a barrier. And so we kind of, the common denominator is we help solve that.
Absolutely. I know that I've heard you mention that when you started with Go High Level, it was frustrating and overwhelming, and so you'd switch off and go something else. And I started with Go High Level probably 5 years ago, and because I was in a position where I had to learn it, I learned it quickly, and I felt that it was really easy to use. And one of the things that I saw when I came in was how you had taken their basic platform and changed it into a delight to use. I mean, it's just everything is done. It's the templates are there, everything works, and then all the extra support that you don't get when you just buy the software. You know, so I know that's important.
Yeah, definitely. Really, everything again was built from my own journey and my own kind of friction points of building a personal brand and business online. And I think I had to experience as our greatest teacher, and I had to go through that journey of doing it the hard way, doing it the expensive way, thinking that the answer was on this software platform, that software platform. And so, Kajabi for courses, Samcart and Thrivecart for checkouts, ConvertKit and Flowdesk for email, and Zapier, stitching them all together. And yeah, as you mentioned, I was, because I was kind of a platform junkie, because I wanted the best of the best for each of the different ones. Of course, I'd heard about High Level, and had subscribed to it a couple of times. And even though I was on all these different platforms and, kind of had worked through and, learned how to use all of the different platforms enough, every time I opened up High Level, I was just very intimidated by it. And I was just like, ugh. So I kind of be on it for a second, never really do anything, cancel the subscription. But I think going through the kind of like painful and expensive journey of just trying to, as someone who had been a business owner for over a decade myself, had a web presence and a website, since 2009, the fact that I was having such a hard time, kind of like figuring out, the tech of this space and how to make it all work, I was committed to that it shouldn't be this hard for other people. And so I was like, I just really want to help other people based on everything that I, have been learning myself. Like I want to help other people so that it's not this hard and it's not this expensive. They shouldn't have to, you know, get all these mentorships and courses and spend all this money that I have to kind of figure this stuff out. So how can I, start working with people to kind of help them shortcut that journey? But then I realized I couldn't really make good on that promise of helping other people if the answer to breaking into this space was, okay, now you have to go get these 7 different software platforms. You have to pay for all those subscriptions and you have to learn how to use them. I mean, intimidation out of the gate, right?
Mhm.
So that really was when it made me give High Level a second look. And that's really when, I decided that we should go all in on that, kind of moving our whole business over to it, and then having that be the foundation with which we worked with clients on. And I think I see it now, it's kind of the foundation of our
Mhm.
ecosystem. And there's something really cool about having, this kind of like shared space, the shared platform, the shared language. And as you mentioned, it's a community too, right? We've
Mhm.
built up so much support around it. So in my journey of, I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into when I decided to, white label Go High Level. It was November 2024 when I got the agency subscription, which gives you, the ability to kind of like customize it, as you said, and kind of put all the bells and whistles and kind of like build up, your unique imprint of it. So it was November 2024. And I quickly realized, we needed a lot of technical help because I knew enough to know that that's where I wanted to be, but I also knew enough that I wasn't the one who was gonna be the one mastering the tech, so we brought in a team to help us, get the platform set up. And initially they were just kind of gonna come on for the initial setup. I had this vision for the templates because as I was building, there's kind of like these shared things that anyone building a presence, online needs. You need to kind of collect emails, kind of like bring people into your world. So I was like, okay, like let's develop a template. You shouldn't have to kind of reinvent the wheel every
Yeah.
time, you want to like launch a lead magnet opt-in page. So let's develop a template for that. And, you probably want to like monetize and sell something. So sales page. So like, let's build a template for that. And then not just there's a lot of great templates out there, but so often it'll be just like Latin, on the page. So I was like, that's not that helpful, right? So let's put on the template like what you should write there, right? Almost make it like Mad Libs. So
Mhm.
that was a lot of the, kind of like work, the early work in setting up the platform, setting up Firestarter funnels it was very quiet work. It was kind of building, literally, it was me in a coffee shop, back and forth with our development team, me kind of like, just kind of like guiding the development of these templates and the whole setup of everything. Really, believing, and I think this is the journey of entrepreneurship is having a vision and acting on it and believing in the thing that you're building greater than, the kind of like before the external proof has arrived. And that really was the journey because it wasn't until I think we had, so we started coaching people with the foundation, on the platform, working with them as they were kind of like getting their businesses set up. But I think we had 3 people on the platform until like May of 2025. And then, in this, past year, we've grown to, I think, about 115. And it's just so fascinating. I think that literally watching, and that's one of the things that I love about High Level is just the dashboard. You can see the snapshot of your whole business right there. And I think there's just a level of kind of like in-tuneness, when your business isn't scattered across, these 7 different platforms and you kind of see the whole snapshot of your business. But, if you pull up the dashboard, you can literally see, the line of it. It's the story of the business. It's the
Yeah.
story of like this flat line until kind of the thing that I was building in the background, the thing that I believed in so much that, other people started to believe in it too. And, I often say, growth isn't linear, right? I think it can kind of feel like a slog and it can feel like, oh, ones and twos and kind of like incremental. But I think just kind of like trusting the process and, trusting that, yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible because anytime you're building anything, you have to have faith
Yeah.
in where you're going to keep yourself going because while you're in that process, there's not a lot of happening. Not, yeah.
It's just such a contrast, like
Yeah.
what my days are like now, running it like we had, so it's the platform started growing. We have just been so committed to the support. So it's not just the tech, but all the support around it. And so, really growing the team to create that support. And then, also the support for different pathways for clients. So there's the kind of do-it-yourself pathway where, we have tech support hours multiple days a week, and, people can come, bring what they're working on, working with the templates. There's a lot of support kind of for the do-it-yourself path, but we know that not everyone wants to learn the tech or be hands-on with the tech. And so we wanted to kind of have a solution for those people and entrepreneurs and builders and leaders as well. And so that's where, we have full done for you services, building our, authority funnels and authority websites and, kind of like whole, brand packages. So we've really built a whole business support ecosystem for builders at all stages.
And that leads us right into Authority Map.
Yes.
Gotta tell us about what's going on there. Where'd this come from?
Yeah. So, yes. So we talked a little bit about kind of like inside out, building from the inside out. And, so starting with, who you are and building from there versus kind of like who you should be or, what's working for other people. And, in our work to this point, it's part of our methodology. It's part of how we work with clients. It's, through conversation and coaching, we're always trying to kind of like pull that out of people. But I think sometimes people have a hard time trusting their voice, trusting even if they're feeling like something is right for them, maybe they still feel like, well, it doesn't, I feel like I should be doing this. And so that's kind of like the answer they give or what they end up, doing because they feel like they should do it that way. So, of course, you meet different people along the way and it sparks different ideas. And so, one of the people who I met along my journey is Sherry Tree, the founder of Bank Code, which is a assessment for understanding influence and, how we communicate, how we influence other people and how we're influenced. And I just loved meeting her, loved her methodology. I met someone else who really is, specializes in human design. And I just had some aha moments when I unlocked my human design. And, it just made me kind of like reflect differently on, myself. And then Enneagram has been another, methodology that I've found powerful in, understanding myself as well. And so I just kind of like had this aha, when we're in this like time of AI as well. And I think it's an incredible time as an entrepreneur and as a builder, as someone who is just, just kind of like wired to want to create, to be able to kind of like have these tools with AI and Claude Code and to be able to kind of, I think AI has a bad rap for kind of like just generic, kind of spitting out just kind of like generic content. But I think the misconception is that it can be an incredible tool for innovation and for just rapidly bringing like very innovative and completely unique ideas to life, right? And so bringing all of those together, I said, what would it look like if we kind of like fused, the way that we think about brand and business and building, Firestarter's kind of like methodology alongside these other kind of like frameworks and kind of like brought it all together and turned that into kind of like a actionable self-reflection report, that we could kind of use as a starting point for working with our clients to help shortcut that kind of like self-reflection and that, as a foundation for building from there. So that led to creating of the authority map. We have a little quiz, if you want to kind of get a taste of it, it's myauthoritymap.com. And then it leads into, that's just kind of like a quiz. It's not kind of the full process, but it's a little taste of it. And then that also leads you, to the opportunity if you do want to kind of go all in on, the kind of getting the full report with, taking the full assessments and getting your, kind of like custom 45-page report. And the thing I love about it, is like literally no two reports can be the same because it's not just, for example, bank code is like four letters, and it's the ordering of the four letters is how you're wired, and um, and then Enneagram is 8 different types. And so there's a different kind of like order of prioritization for each of those. So the way the report works is it's not just the leading one, but all of the kind of like prioritization of all of those different aspects of it. So the possibilities are endless. And I just love that, that it brings together all of that. And so far, we've done yours and we've done mine and we've done it for some clients. And so far, the response has been like, yeah, this resonates. So I'm excited about that. And we could go on and on all day. I know, we have a limited amount of time, but I'm just so happy, babe, to, have you in studio. We would love to invite you to the Personal Brand Operating System Masterclass. Babe will be there live with me. We're running it every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. You can register for the next session. It's thepersonalbrandos.com. And that's where, you can register, and we'd love to see you there live. And any last words, babe?
No, I think that about covers it.
Awesome. Well, amazing to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Firestarter Podcast. You can find us at thefirestarterpodcast.com. We would love for you to subscribe on my YouTube channel at Willa Kammerer. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Willa Kammerer. And if you liked this conversation, leave us a little review. It goes a long way helping other listeners like you find more conversations like this. So see you on the next episode.